Great, thank you, Corey. Good evening, everyone. We'll call the Hawarden, Iowa City Council to order at 5:30 on Wednesday, January the 26th, 2022. Number of agenda items tonight. If you wish to address the council, open business from the community is at agenda item number 1C. Ask that you come up to the dais and tell us your name. We do tape this, so that's important for that. You'd be limited to 5 minutes in discussion. There are no other opportunities to talk. There are no public hearings at this point for tonight. We will start with approval of the January 12, 2022 regular City Council meeting minutes, agenda number 1A. Council folks, you've had that in your packet.
So moved.
There's been a motion by John. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Rob. All in favor then of the approval of the January 12th, 2022 regular City Council meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 5-0. Approval of our claims for payment for today. We'll start to my right with Monty for questions. Okay. Travis, any questions?
None, thank you.
John?
None, thank you.
Patty?
No, none, thank you.
Okay. Rob?
No questions.
Is there a motion for approval for claims for payment?
So moved.
Moved by John. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Patty. All in favor then of the January 26, 2022 claims for payment, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Abstain?
That passes 4-1 abstention. Jacob? Next is open business from the community.
Give it a hand.
You can come right up to the podium, please.
Excuse me. Good evening, council, mayor, city staff. My name is John Grease. I live at 2201 Avenue L. And I would like to thank the mayor. I believe you read my letter last council meeting.
Yep, certainly did.
So, my understanding, we're under no obligation to do that, and I appreciate that.
You're
Keeping
welcome, John.
government channels open for the community. I'm here to revisit the property on 9th Street that's referred to as the Cottage. I don't believe we as in the city did the right thing on this. In October there was a ribbon cutting in the paper welcoming the owner on board for a new business in a residential area. Since then, I think there's been community input, and people were a little dismayed at it being essentially spot zoned for commercial. I don't know. But going back and forth, and then some meetings were scheduled on the 10th. Zoning committee meetings and the zoning adjustment board meetings. The planning and zoning commission meeting was on the 10th at 2 o'clock to approve or disapprove a special exception for that property. And then the zoning board of adjustment meeting was held at 4 o'clock for the same purpose. I've been going over the zoning ordinances of the city, and one of the common threads in there, it seems like that they're concerned about the well-being of the citizens in the neighborhood and the city and how things affect them. Before any decisions are made to change things, they look at how it's going to affect them and they get their input. I personally don't feel that their input was given the proper weight in either one of those meetings. Both of those meetings approved the special exemption for the cottage on 9th Street to become a bed and breakfast. Now we all know, or I hope we all know, that that is not the intention of the owner, to have a bed and breakfast. From my letter that was read to everybody last week, that property is not a two-bedroom house. The owner of the property has made it clear that she wants to hold events there, and I applaud her entrepreneurship and hope she could have her dreams come true. But what we got now, because of the way things were handled, in my opinion, is you have two sides. You have residents that are unhappy, they're disillusioned, they're dissatisfied with, they feel that their voices weren't heard, and they feel it's being forced on them to, if they see something wrong that is outside what is approved to be done at that property, they have to report it. So they're the ones that are forced to look and see, oh, they did it wrong, they did it wrong. We don't need that division in our city. That's not what I saw the day after Christmas when the fire got put out in downtown. I saw the community come together. And that's what I would like to see in handling this issue. I would like both parties to be satisfied somehow. Whether they're sat down and discussed with each other and you come to a solution city-wise. Now, you may think that you don't have an opportunity to do anything about it, but I believe you do. I think because the meeting on Monday for the zoning board adjustment was held 2 hours after the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, that meeting is illegal. Because in city code, it says that after the Planning and Zoning Commission makes a decision on an item, they report that conclusion to the Board of Zoning Adjustment. And at that time, the Board of Zoning Adjustment schedules, through public notice, a meeting to decide the variance. So the way it was done, 2 hours afterwards, that violated city code. Now, I'm not saying that that was intentional. I'm not up here to play gotcha. I just want you to be aware of that. There's new people in the city administration, new people on the city council. Mistakes get made. But I believe that opens up the council so that their hands aren't tied in this matter. Also, I would like to reveal that in addition, there was a Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting on the 18th, I believe, on January. Now, while it conformed to city code that the meeting gives a 24-hour in advance notice in a local paper, it didn't conform to Iowa code that it was posted where we usually post meetings in the city at the front door or on the building or outside the office. It's my understanding that it wasn't posted. So that meeting could result in further litigation on those decisions. Now, you don't have it on the agenda to go into a closed meeting, but I believe it's within your right to do that and address these issues, because Iowa Code 21C gives you that right with a 2/3 board or council vote, so that you can confer with your lawyer, the city attorney, on imminent litigation. So there's no reason for us to be in this position. That, I believe, gives the city an out to revisit this issue that is causing so much division in with our citizens. You can revisit, get the people together, come to terms, or set conditions on how everybody can be made whole. Hawarden is a great place to visit and a better place to live. Thank you.
John, thank you very much for your comments tonight.
Thank you, John.
Any other business from the community? We'll then move on to the mayor's report. Our sympathy to Bernadine Danielson and her family with the death of her husband, Robert. Bernadine is a devoted staff member at our Hawarden Public Library. And also the Fireman Ball will be this Saturday. Ask the citizens to please support the members of the fire department and give them their thanks for their service. As we know, this past month, as we deal with fires, we know all their training and all their good works are put to our safety. We'll move on to staff reports, and Jacob, nice to have you back.
I actually don't have anything new to report tonight.
That's good. We'll talk more about budget later, I'm sure. So, Travis.
This year we'll be painting our water tower. We've in the plans to keep Hawarden in block letters, but this also gives us an opportunity that I guess we weren't really aware of until the company offered that they could paint a falcon or a West Sioux logo on the side of the water tower facing the school. This, of course, would be at the school's cost, but before offering that option to the school, I wanted to ask the council if they had any objection to that. If there wasn't any, then I would pursue offering that, and obviously,
idea.
like I said, at their cost. But Hawarden in block letters would be on the side facing away from the school, and then the Falcon logo towards the school. So that would be kind of nice. But
Yeah, I think it'd be nice.
and then you'll see in the claims we've ordered last fall through the state bid a new pickup for the street crew. This was paid out of the internal service fund. Money's added every year for vehicles and equipment purchases when they're needed. Historically, we buy a pickup every 10 years for street department, gas, electric, water, and general utility admin. And then those vehicles, after their 10 years, then they're handed down to wastewater, meter reader, cemetery, and summer help. The street pickup will be replacing a 1997 meter reading pickup. So just wanted to throw that out there and give a little history. That's all.
Thank you. Probably lucky you can get pickups.
Yeah, we were really lucky to get this one. I know a lot of them are closed. Corey was.
I know Rock
was
Island
looking.
Police tried to get one, and they got to go to a Tahoe or something because
Yeah,
Chevy canceled that. So, hi, Wanda.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. How are you?
Closing your first month, so give us a report. if
All
you will.
right. So a couple items to report tonight. First off, as most of you are probably aware, our audio did not work last council meeting, and as we talked about it amongst staff, that is probably the original equipment from when this part of the building was built, so we will probably be looking for estimates on replacing the audiovisual equipment in here and probably in the community center, because we believe that that's also original, so that's well over 20 years old and well past life of use. Next thing on my agenda, in the memo that I sent out, T-Mobile is again looking at attaching to our towers, so we'll be negotiating with them in the next few months. This is from, my understanding, originated in 2019. They were doing some reshuffling around and had dropped it at that point, and now they're coming back to us. So we'll look into that. We had some good news. We always like good news. We received a check for $233,700 a week ago, and I'm a little fuzzy on all of the details, but it is a lump sum payment from Earth Station, and my understanding, as I talked with Ron and with Travis, is it has to do with the 5G network that's being put in and putting filters and receivers on our satellites. So we had to purchase some of the equipment, and I don't have a total of what that is, but we did receive a check for $233,000 for telecom. And finally, more on high tech, Paul Bergman is on our agenda tonight, but we did meet to discuss some of the upgrades, and if you've been on Channel 10 or on any of the cable channels, you've noticed that you've had to rescan your TV. So Ron is doing, moving channels from analog to digital. It'll be disruptive for our citizens for a little bit, but we think in the end it'll be much better by moving from analog to the digital channels, opens up some bandwidth for us on the internet piece. And we'll go into more detail on that when Paul presents. I believe that's it.
Travis mentioned to me this morning, if you're not sure how to rescan your TV, call the city and
Yep.
Mike will come
Call
out
the
and
city and
do a
they'll
house call for
schedule
that.
a service call. Somebody will come and help. We've already done 5 or 6. So,
My wife can get what she wants taped.
yep.
Okay, great, thank you. Hi, Carol. If you give us a report, please.
Well, we continue to work on the Zomer auction downtown revitalization after the fire. We've had a lot of residents bring in and businesses bring in some really nice auction items. So we've continued to work on that, and if anybody has any items they'd like to bring in, we'd appreciate them yet this week. We will still continue to accept some next week for the auction, and that will start February 7th. Some of the businesses downtown have asked for different programs that we might have available, so I've been trying to figure out certain grants or things we can apply for to assist them. I've worked with several new businesses that are trying to move into Hawarden. That's been pretty exciting. We were able to put one piece of ground under contract. That will be coming to you guys to review here at the next council meeting. I'm pretty excited about that. And we had 2 buildings, one actually closed that has been vacant for a number of years, which a new business will be going into that. And then I have another building that just today went under contract that's been vacant. So we will be getting some new apartments in town. So that'll be pretty exciting. I continue to work on the grant that I'm writing for the revolving loan fund. That is quite challenging, but it will get done here in the next couple of weeks. Other than that, we're still hoping for our new website. I haven't had much time to work on that since the fire, but I would like to see our city website be updated and a little bit more jazzy. That's about it.
The items for the online auction to the library, is that my understanding?
Yes, if you have time to drop them off there, or if you don't have time, just please feel free to call the library or my office, and we'll swing by and grab them.
Okay, good, thank you very much, thanks for your good work. Corey, thanks for the great report that you've put in our packet tonight. Do you have other things to add for that, please?
I just wanted to touch base with a few key points in that report. Everybody got it. We were at about a 25% increase for calls for services. I put in there, some of that's due to COVID-19, a lot more people at home, a lot more people noticing things going on, which is great. We want to have that involvement from the citizens. Obviously, we can't be everywhere at one time, so we appreciate that. The other thing, too, is, we're in about year 3 of our RMS software, our record management software, that's helping us have a more accurate depiction of what our call for services are, and breaking them down and showing where we can increase efficiencies and, make most with the officers that we have out at one given time. A couple of good things on here that I'd like to touch base with quick. You'll notice we had 64 nuisance abatement investigations. Those literally start with a notice that's generated. If there's non-compliance, it goes to the next level where they're given a final notice, and 90% of those that we had this year were complied with. We only wrote 5 citations, which to me is good. We still try to work with everybody to make sure that they are given an opportunity to take care of their, if it's a junk vehicle or tall weeds. We don't go exactly by the dates in the code. We give people more time if they're willing to show us some effort. We do have some repeat offenders every single year that just need a friendly notice, and usually after 1 or 2 times throughout the year, they figure it out and go from there. But I just think the more that we do it, the more that it's going to be a lot smoother, I guess I'll say. The other thing is we do vehicle lockouts. You'll see we did 69 of them last year. Anybody who lives in the West Sioux Community School District, they get 1 free a year. We have some people that call 3-4 times a year to unlock their vehicles. Now we're charging a $20 fee for a second or subsequent vehicle unlocking. We also were one of the only departments in the county that was doing fingerprints during the whole COVID crisis. And anybody who didn't live in our district or wasn't coming to work in our district, we were charging $10 for that. So it was nice to have a little revenue coming in on services that weren't for our citizens. Snow removal citations were a lot lower than they have been in the past. One, obviously, we haven't had a lot of the snow that we've had previously, and we only have 10 people that haven't paid their tickets from last year, which is a good deal. Secondly, our Part 1 crimes, you'll notice, last year we had 13. Part 1 crimes are depicted by the FBI. Your more serious crimes, okay? Last year, or in 2020, we had 13 of them. Last year, we had 5. So your murders, rapes, robberies, assaults, burglaries, I love to see a decline in that. You know, that's exactly the direction we want to keep that going. And for all the Part 2 crimes, the criminal mischief, vandalism, stuff like that, we went from 12 in 2020 down to 2 last year. We're showing a lot less victims. You'll also notice that our drugs actually went up, but that was something that we were trying to do. We wanted to have more investigations into drugs and try to eradicate them from our community the best we can and let everybody know that we don't want that here. I kind of broke everything down for everybody. They could go through and see the different calls for services we had. You see we assist the ambulance 108 times, sheriff's office 54 times. We do a lot of mutual aid with different entities throughout the community. 190 citizen complaints, you know, I love it. Like I said, I encourage it. I would expect more people to call in with things. Other than that, there's a lot of information on here. If there's any questions with it, I'd be more than happy to entertain them.
It was a really good report, detailed.
Thank you.
More detailed than the ones I've seen in my career, so thank you very much.
No problem.
And thanks for those people that are following up on their property maintenance. Hopefully, in
And a
our
big
lifetime,
thanks
we
to
won't
the-
have to have that, and they'll
100%.
do that without our notice. So,
And I just want to give thanks to the staff and the police department. You know, without them working the nights, the weekends, the holidays, I mean, it's tough. I did it for a lot of years and still continue to come out. It was great representation at the fire as well, and it's nice to know you have a good staff.
right, and it's great, all the departments work very well together.
Correct.
And Johnny's retirement will be coming up
Yep. Johnny will,
and later.
yep, he's put in that he'll be retiring April 1st. After 31 years, that's pretty remarkable, really. You know, it's going to be sad to lose such a veteran, an asset to the community. You know, he's kind of been my right hand. Who do I call for this or this? You know, it's hard to go from somewhere that you've been for 17 years where you know who to call to get a tractor, put cows back in, you know, all those different things. And Johnny was kind of that guy. So we're definitely going to put some feelers out here this next week and try to find, I don't want to say a replacement because I don't think that that's possible, but find somebody who has experience in law enforcement. And because Officer LaRocco and Arroyo are so young yet, they don't have, you know, as many years on or near the experience in all the different facets of this job. So we're going to try to see if we can't find somebody who would love to relocate to Hawarden and, you know, maybe move up to a sergeant position or something higher and go from there.
Thank you very much. Hi, Jenny, you're into your first month here too, so thanks for being with us. Anything from your point of view?
You know, I think just a comment as far as observations and different things going on. I realize we have a lot of new staff, we have new members, new people in different positions. Just a reminder for everyone, both staff and council, that when we do our opening comments, this is a time for updates, reports that were just given, event occurrences, happenings, and just a reminder that any issues or items which may need input from the city and are open for discussion need to be made agenda items. The rules and procedures mandate that certain notice requirements are given on various items. So just a reminder that all non-routine updates and events need to be put on the agenda before discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff from council, or we'll move into council comments, number 2C? Okay, we have none, then we will continue with other agenda items. Agenda item number 3, Long Lines presentation with Paul Bergman and Larry Larson.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
So pretty.
Same thing coming from that way or different?
He's a big dog, he's so pretty.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council and staff, and thanks for letting us come up here tonight and just talk to you guys about the communication system. So, and also, you know, it's some of you might know, but you guys have been in business for 20-plus years, so thank you for allowing Long Lines to be involved with you for those 20-plus years and going forward, so we appreciate that. I just wanted to, and I think you probably all know this, but I was just looking at it the other day, and the data subs, you're at 890 data subs in the city of Hawarden. And I think there's, you know, this is what I hear, around 1,200 homes or maybe slightly under, so you got over 75% of the customers, which is really quite amazing and very good. So. I think it's kind of a tribute to your staff, you know, with Christy and Ron and the city staff and, you know, the citizens, but, I mean, have done a really good job of, you know, providing service and all that, so you're fortunate there. And I think what we want to talk about is, you know, and we've talked with Wanda and Travis and Ron here a week or so ago, and I've talked prior to that with Mike sometimes, and just where do we go from here? And I've listed this out, and, you know, I think our main goal on the network is, you know, simplify it and update to provide higher data speeds. And to do that, we really need to add more capacity to the current system. And to simplify it, there's a couple items that, you know, you have the data network, but you really have 3 networks running over one piece of cable. You have your data, your cable TV, which is an RF system right now, and your phone system, which runs on there on a separate frequencies. And where it's really heading to, and it's no secret, you guys already probably know this, but it's all going IP, and that's where you really want to get to, so you have one system on the network and not maintaining these 3 older systems. So, and I think that's where we want to go to. So the first thing is we need to increase the bandwidth on the cable network you currently have, and some of these are already in progress, as Wanda mentioned, eliminating some analog channels and moving them to digital. And I don't know how familiar you are with that, but typically you can put like 8 digital channels, 7 to 8 channels onto one analog channel. So you're freeing up, you know, 7 channels for every one. So it's a good way of freeing up bandwidth, and most cable companies have moved on to that. So the second, and we kind of have them in steps here, you know, that has to be done first, because we cannot upgrade the capacity without moving some of these channels around. So the second step would be changing your system from 750 megahertz to 1 gigahertz. And to do that, you need to replace all the current amplifiers, which are 750 megahertz. And I think there's 100, roughly around 100. So that would be the next step. So I do have some target dates here that we have discussed. And we're always hoping to improve on them, but the first one would be with the analog channels is by the end of Q1, end of March 31st. The second one, which is upgrading the amps, the goal would be is to get that completed by the end of June, if not sooner. And it is quite a bit of work. So, and I know we've talked about where maybe getting some of Longline staff wants to get ready to do it and really trying to, knock them off because, Ron, he still has his day job of taking care of the customers, so we got to make sure we'll give him some time on that. Once those two items are completed, the current CMTS, which is the cable modem system that the city of Hawarden owns and uses today, we can upgrade that system by replacing the existing cards in it. And right now, there's like 9 cable TV nodes in the city of Hawarden throughout the system. So in each one of those nodes, right now, they're either up to 4 channels of capacity or up to 8 channels. Ideally, we would get those all up to 32 channels. And each channel can do like 35 megabits. So if we can get up to 32 channels, you're offering, roughly a gigabit of data to each individual node. And everybody on those nodes share that data, but I mean, that's quite a bit of data for that. So, I mean, for the most part, I know the amps are are here. They need to be installed. But by completing all this, it should really increase the capacity to the customers 2 to 4 times, depending on where they're at. So, which is what we really need to do for the customers. Any questions? And before I go further, I forgot about it. I meant to do this right away. Anyway, this is Larry Larson. He's our director of our technology at Longlines, and he knows this. He can do this in his sleep. I got to have notes.
I did it last night. So we did a conversion last night, same kind of thing that you guys are doing here and doing some upgrades and just, we're talking about channels. This is an RF frequency chart. The yellow is the amount of bandwidth that Longline uses on their cable system, on our system. The purple is what you guys have available. So each one of these blocks is a channel. So when you take an analog channel and you convert 8 of those into 1, it frees up 8 more channels that you can use for data. So this is the goal, is to get a lot of yellow. That's where your data is at, so. Analog channels are the big one.
Yep. Any questions so far? Thank you. The other item that will be happening, which isn't really network related, is we have been on an older billing system, and it's not just Hawarden, it's other municipals that we serve. That's really, it's still supported, but there's not upgrades to it. So our plan is to upgrade all of the municipals that we work with here in the next second and third quarter. And I believe Hawarden is scheduled for in July of this summer. So the other bullet point we have here is I talked about moving the telephone and simplifying that as well. To do that, there's some, the equipment in there is, 24 years old. It's really not supported anymore. It's, and I know Ron has a lot of spare equipment there to help support it, but what we need to do is start moving it off of that and moving it to an IP voice service and get it onto the IP network. And and really, to simplify the system, because it's a difficult, there's very few people that know how to even operate that equipment anymore. So we need to make it simple, so going forward, down the road, it's more similar to most systems. So and the problem with that is it takes time, because there's roughly 400 lines still on the old system, so you can't convert them just overnight. You got to go to you have to touch each person's home to do it. It's not a big change, but you would have to go in there and change it. So that will take some time. And then, you know, where's it go after that? Because this is kind of all in motion right now and ready to move forward. Is, you know, over the next months, we have set up, which I'm glad is, you know, monthly meetings so we can kind of track the progress and keep things going, where's things slipping. But longer term, we've talked about the DOCSIS 3.1 option, which really, you know, quadruples the capacity again and allows gigabit speeds. We think on the old system you can get up to 500 meg, maybe a little bit more, but with 3.1 you can easily do a gigabit on it. So that's where it's, so reviewing that option, which we have, Long Lines has, you know, completed almost every community. We got one community left to do. They did 3 last night, so. But the other piece is the video, which is still on the RF. And a lot of people are switching their video to an IP option. And we have some potential options there that, you know, it's, where do you go? I think you can operate as is, but I think here over the next 3 to 6 months through these meetings, we'll try to come up with some different options there with pricing and that. But ideally, you go to an IP solution, so you eliminate that network as well. And Larry knows all about IP, so if you have any questions about the video IP, any features, if you want to say anything or.
So, yeah, we're in the process of rolling out some of our own. We're getting rid of our RF plant. To do the next upgrade that we'd have to do to keep current is like $380,000 just for the Long Line side. Now, that doesn't count our Orange City locations and everywhere else that we've got RF still at. So we're in the process of doing an IP TV solution. So think of it as you got YouTube TV, you got Hulu Live, you got Long Line's flight. It's flight video now. So we're developing that. Hopefully have a test bed here within the next 3 to 4 months that I'll be able to do some testing and do that kind of stuff. So that will become an option down the road for other communities to piggyback off of our IPTV solution.
And then I guess thirdly, there's the fiber to the home option too. So, you know, and I know the city has put in a lot of interduct, so need to figure out what the cost is and where the city wants to go with that. You know, if you're aggressive and want to do fiber to the home, you maybe hold off from doing DOCSIS 3.1 because you just go straight to fiber to the home. If the fiber to the home process is over, you know, 4 or 5, 6 years, then maybe we do the DOCSIS 3.1 upgrade, spend that, get it going, and then it gives you a little more time to do the fiber to the home conversion. So
Long Lines and some of the other entities I deal with, we use about a 3-year return. So if you're planning on doing fiber to the home within 3 to 4 years, you probably don't want to do DOCSIS 3.1. If you're going to be beyond that, then you probably want to consider DOCSIS 3.1 and get gig speeds to the home through DOCSIS using the existing cable plant.
And then lastly, we've talked about this and just the data plans, the current data plans and the current rates. And most cable companies are charging it's a local rebroadcast fee, and the city of Hawarden is not yet. And I did on the back page just show you, and I think you are aware of it, that you know, the rates haven't been increased since 2018 on cable TV. And so just, you know, I summarized on the local plan, you're losing about, just in programming cost, a little over $4 per subscriber. And on the basic plan, you're losing about $17.68. And that's just to cover the programming costs. So that doesn't cover any maintenance, any staffing, any of that. So it's a unfortunate problem with the video business. It's the programming rates just keep going up. So it's, you know, we need to pass some of that cost on to the customer. And I know that's your guys' decision, but, you know, we would look at is, you know, do you do it over a 2 or 3 year period, or, you know, some of those items. And I know we're a partner with the city of Mapleton, and we did get behind there, and what we chose there was to spread it over a 3 year period to finally get caught up. And the IP video or something like that might give you some other options as well, but, you know, because the way I calculate it, it's about an $8,000 loss per month right now on programming. And if you increased rates roughly $10, that drops it to about $3,200 a month. So it's, nobody wants to raise rates, but you also don't want to lose money, because we got to, you know, we want to make money so we can reinvest in the network and keep growing it for the years to come. We also talked about, you know, I think I think your pricing isn't too bad on your data packages, but I think we could, you know, if we do a cable TV increase maybe at that same time, give some data bumps immediately with it, so the citizens are getting some something for the price increase a little bit. So, and we have done that quite a bit, and, you know, it hopefully helps soften the blow, you know. And you know, we kind of talked about the 3 megabit speed. We still have it. There's fewer customers on it every month, but I would stop offering it. It's not a good experience. And we really just need to bump all of our data speeds. Part of that will help once we upgrade the system this summer, but we can probably do some of it sooner than that. And, you know, you can always grandfather existing, you know, there's a lot of ways to work it. But the other item is, in the very bottom line, is really, you know, you got an internet system, half it's your Wi-Fi and half it's the whole network. If your Wi-Fi is not working very well, they think the internet's not working very well. And so a lot of companies are really getting aggressive with providing better cable modem and Wi-Fi service. And you can allow the customer to opt in, but you find out, again, half the network's really that whole Wi-Fi side. So it's kind of like cell phone service. You can have a great cell phone network, but if your cell phone doesn't work, it's not so good. But so we, you know, recommend that, and most companies, and I just know the rates, but, you know, for the premium Wi-Fi service, which some people are willing to pay for, you know, they charge $10 to $12 a month for it. So you're buying better modems, you're buying better Wi-Fi routers, and ultimately it's, I think, a better service for the customer. And I think a lot of them are like, I just want it to work. I want it to work everywhere in my house. I don't want to have these, you know, issues. So, and I think they're willing to pay for it. So that's all I had. And I've been kind of talking. So, any questions or?
Paul, you've been on the monthly meetings. Is Larry on that too, being the tech person?
He wasn't there.
Not that you're not technical.
Well, no, he wasn't there, but he is, well, we talked about it and it just didn't work out the last one. I know, I was thinking of, for our next meeting is bringing our director of sales and marketing up, and we could maybe talk about rates and plans, and, you know, so you can present to the council on, you know, your recommendations. And I don't know how that all works, but
That'd be very helpful.
but
Back, can't remember how long ago it was a couple months ago, Thanksgiving time, yeah, Thanksgiving week. My team and I made a trip up here and met with Ron and went through the plan of updating to gig on the amps and getting that part all going, and he showed us all the stuff he's got, and we started looking at what's gonna take to do this, the CMTS, the cable modem termination system, to do the upgrades of the cards on that. And, so we are in contact with Ron quite often, which is good, because, you know, he's got a wealth of knowledge, but I know his time is fairly short, so whatever can be done to streamline it would be best for that.
Yeah, and he's got other, you know, you have people on your team that if Larry can't come, you know, because they're not real long meeting, you know, it's a morning deal, and
I think it's just very important for the community and everybody to know that, you know, we do have a strong plan going forward and hope to offer better service in the future, and with the help of Long Lines, we can get there. So appreciate Paul meeting with us and helping us out.
This is really good information. Thank you for having these. I think the monthly meeting idea is really good. It's really good for you too, coming on new. And you'll have different sources to pick their brain and say, give you this. But we've had a long relationship with Long Lines, and they've always been supportive of municipal telecom utilities. Seen it for years, so I really appreciate everything you've done.
thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions from council while we have Paul and Larry here?
No, looks like a good plan.
Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 4, Avenue L Street Project, discussion and council recommendation for the project. Travis and Wanda have put together a lot of information for us. It was a good presentation by Dan Van Scapen with DGR at our last meeting. Do you have thoughts for tonight before we discuss it as council?
Wanda put in the packet a good finance projections, and
Sorry.
the the plan itself was, you know, Dan Van Scapen did a good job explaining it last week. If there's any, you know, questions on the nuts and bolts of that plan, we can discuss that as well.
And there it's broken down into,
Yeah, the phases, we really like that because, you know, we know L, the whole thing we'd like to do. But there's a good breaking point at 16th Street, and then 16th to 20th. And then, you know, while you're doing it, you have a brand new hospital. Some of those roads around there, heavy traffic. So we added 11th and 12th Street. And then we thought, you know, the new entrance, they'd like to come off of M, off the Highway 10, because it's a better, safer turn rather than L. You know, you're on the bottom of the hill and it's got that big dip. So we added M from 10th to 12th as another option, kind of the last option. They're kind of listed Schedule 1 through 4 based on, all right, we really need and want to do Schedule 1. Schedule 2 is the next important, and they're kind of listed under importance. And as if we can get to the bidding stage and see how much actual costs are, you know, that's when you step back and, you know, well, we can only afford to do so much. This is the section we want to do. And this is how much we can pay for by doing the payment projections.
One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we gave the council the opportunity was to have various funding sources. The repayment terms that we typically, as I mentioned in the notes, that we have typically done is 10 years. If you look at on the funding sources, fiscal year 24 and 25, you'll see that the payment for the 10 years, $280,000. The monies that we have for the funding sources are a little short those 2 years. 16th Street is in the final payments, and there's a couple other of the TIF money that are in the final payments. Once we get past fiscal year 25, those roll off, And so we have a lot more available funds within the TIF to be able to make those payments. We have, on the loss projections, we estimated those very conservatively. We do have, considerable history on that. And based on the last 5 years, the TIF monies were approximately $375,000 a year.
Lost money.
Lost, yes, I'm sorry, thank you. Lost money was approximately $375,000 a year, and that has been going up pretty steady every year. But we don't want to build into our funding sources that anticipated increase, so we kept it very conservative. I believe that we will be very, very close on fiscal years 24 and 25 to meet that payment structure of a 10-year at the $280,000. If we are not, we could borrow internally to make those payments, and when we get 2 years, fiscal year 27, 28, we have considerable amount of money in the TIF that we could use to pay back those internal loans if we decided to do that. Again, that's an option. We can certainly take a look at the 15-year payout on that, and the numbers that are up here includes all 4 of those schedules. That's the full amount, and it depends upon, once we get those bids back, if they're in that ballpark or if we take something out. But this is a starting point for us. I felt very comfortable with, before I started looking at what our funding sources were going to be, I was a little nervous, but after using the lost money and then what's available in TIF, I believe it's a very viable project, as long as our bids are comparable to what DGR was telling us that they thought they would be.
And this is without going into any debt levy.
Yep, no debt levy.
The assessments were already hitting the homeowners along the street.
Thoughts from council?
Thank you for putting this together. I think it explains it fairly well on where our funding sources would come from for this project. And, I'd like to think we could do it in 10 years, but we need to see where the bids, I guess, come back as long as we want to move forward with it. So.
And if we decide that 10 years where we want to be, then we can roll off some of those schedules if it is too expensive and still do it in the 10 years and then have that availability to look at that, midway through the repayment process on this one. Maybe it's time, then we pick up those other streets. I just wanted to make sure that we had enough flexibility to be able to get at least Avenue L done.
Is there a motion from the council to continue the project on Avenue L?
So moved.
Been a motion by Travis. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Rob. All this needs is a voice vote. All in favor then of continuing with Avenue L Street project, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Passes 3-2.
I feel that, there's multiple streets in the community that need to be repaired. I want to see Avenue L done, but probably not at 2.7 to 3 million. At a different type of repair, so that some of this money can be put into all these residential streets. There's so many with, they're just rutted, they're peeling, they've been in disrepair a long time. And yes, I would like to see Avenue L done. It would be wonderful to have it concrete, and it needs to be leveled down and the holes filled, and along with multiple streets, and I'd like to see a street maintenance plan and target not just Avenue L, but a plan to every year be targeting all these other streets that's all I hear from people. That's one of the main things that I had multiple calls on and texts, and I heard that a lot. And so I just feel like I want Avenue L done. Yes, it'd be wonderful to pave it, but I just think that to spend the money now, and maybe it's done in a different manner, and you work around and hit these, you rate all the streets, there's some that are like severe, and you start hitting all of them and then come back around to L and see what shape it's in, and maybe at that point you're able to concrete it. But there's so many residential streets in such poor shape that I feel like we won't be able to get to them if we put all our money in one street. So that's why I'm saying no. I just want to be clear. Not because I think it's not a good idea. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you for your discussion. Move on to other agenda item number 5, discussion of the fiscal year 23 general fund and enterprise funds budget.
So you've had time to hopefully look at the budget. In my memo, I said that we would not go line by line unless that is something that you would like to do as a council. But for our purposes, for tonight, I am going to just hit the general funds, and if there's any point that you want to stop and to have a discussion, we can certainly do that. If there's questions that you have right now that you would like to address up front, we can certainly do that also. Council have a preference?
Whatever's easier for you.
Yeah, I'd say go through and hit the, what you want to
Skip
point
the
out
highlights.
first. And
Honestly, from last year's budget to this year's budget, there's only a couple items that have really changed. In the general fund revenues, there's really very little change from that. If we go on to page 10, and page 10 is up in the corner, in the right-hand corner. These are just our revenues. We did decrease on the ambulance a little bit, the fees, because they have not been doing as many runs. However, when we get to the expense side, you'll see that we did increase fees to the crews, $20. That the last time we did that was 5 years ago. So in order to remain competitive, we did add that in. Moving on to, I'm going to keep going unless you tell me to stop. Just stuff. So in the general fund, general administration, one of the things that we did down on contractual services, we added Catalyst to the general fund. It had been in telecom, but because Catalyst is our IT company and we use those throughout the entire organization, we didn't feel that it was fair for telecom to have to pay for all of that. So we brought it back into the general portion of the budget and account for it in that manner. Police protection. Corey, is there anything you want to add there?
You'll see an increase, and since I've been here, it's about an average of 10,000 a year. Competitive salary. Other than that, we pretty much kept everything the same. I think overall it's like a 3% increase compared to the previous years, which were negative. We just have to catch up now. That's all it is.
I don't know if you want to mention that, but we are feeling some pressure from the counties.
Yeah, we are. In 2020, they passed, actually 2021, last July, they passed this Back the Blue bill. I think the way it was described to me, it was an attempt to make sure that police departments were funded throughout the state, and what it did was they used some shall verbiage in a code section that would require the county sheriff to have a comparable wage analysis. For example, I can speak of Crawford County. The sheriff there was making $79,200. When they did a wage comparison, the closest city was Johnston, which we all know is one of the richest places in the state. And now he, in a 5-year period, I think he'll be making $139,000. And the county doesn't know where that's coming from. They also offer, working with the sheriff's office, you get to retire with IPERS after 50 years of age, and for police departments, 55. So we're starting to see people wanting to go to the sheriff's office, and it's been quite a competition when we're already struggling to get officers to even apply. So now anything that opens up at a sheriff's office, that's what we're competing against. And a lot of the places, like when, as a lieutenant in Crawford County, I made 85% of what the sheriff made. So if he was making 139, I would have been 85% of that. So I feel bad for the counties that that's gone to, but hopefully we'll get some good competitive people. So we're trying to stay competitive. We're right at the state average, I'd say, right now, or a little higher. So other than that, everything else is pretty much your regular 3% increase.
Okay, thanks, Corey. Fire services, there aren't a lot of changes here. Kept the revenues and the expenditures approximately the same. Ambulance services, as I mentioned, we did reduce the call volume, the dollars that we were receiving, but we did do an increase to the crew fees. I believe what Jeff told me yesterday or this morning was that they have started new EMS courses, and we have 5 additional people that are taking EMS courses from Hawarden, 5 from Alcester, and I think 3 from Ireton that are taking EMS courses, so that's a good problem to have, is to have that many. We pay for those courses once they've finished it, and then they are contracted to stay with us, the Hawarden ones obviously, for 2 years. General roadway maintenance.
Yeah, we increased the travel and training. We joined the Northwest Iowa Safety Group, so there's an increase there. We're still planning 50,000 square yards of seal coat. And those were the major changes there.
Okay. Next to the library board, again, very little changes here. Most of the changes on any of these funds is just an increase in staff salary. I believe most of the staff salaries were kept at a 2.5% increase. Coming from the private sector, that's a really low increase, but it's what our union contract is at right now. So I would leave it at that for this time, but possibly next budget year, we're going to have to look at something more significant, especially with the cost of living raise. Library board. Next are some of our services, our recreation program, pool. Those are pretty much staying the same. Cemetery, do you want to talk about cemetery?
Yeah, after previous discussion on the columbarium, that was put in under the capital outlay. And like I said, it's something that if we need to find some money somewhere, then that would be the place. But if we can squeeze it in, I think it'd be something good for the community, so.
Okay. Senior citizens, economic development, golf course, parks and playgrounds. I think probably the only real change here, obviously most of this has stayed the same, but Travis and I talked about with the golf course, we've never put them on a capital equipment fund, correct? And
No.
so we're going to start doing that because of the price of the equipment, and try to keep or be able to start budgeting for those large pieces of equipment that we're buying for the golf course. So that is something new.
It's kind of the same thing we do for all the utilities. In the past, we'd go a year and then they'd come and say, oh, we need a new mower, and it's $53,000. Hopefully this way we can really budget that, and then we know how much it's going to be every year. And then the money's there to make those purchases.
Water utility?
One change in salaries, we've added Tracy. Tracy's our billing clerk. She's always been in the general fund, but everything she does is utility related. 90% of her duties. She does do the accounts payable stuff too, but that's mainly for all the utilities, so.
Sanitary sewer, any changes? Anything you want to bring up there?
JR, we've split him 50% water and wastewater. And he's also training in the meter reader part. Eventually, Tim Erickson, we moved to cemetery. He's there 58% of the time. So 50% of his comes out of cemetery and the rest comes out of GUA because he helps in the winter with street, electric, they're trimming trees with all the departments. Water, wastewater, he still keeps his grade 1 in those. So there was some insurance. Insurance seems to be, we raised 10% is what we thought estimated insurance was going to be going up. One good thing, wastewater, we've seen a significant drop in their electricity usage, so there's like a $30,000 savings there just on that, the new blower motors that they put in and the VFD drives, they're able to run them at a lower percentage, and because before they were on and they were running 100%. So
That's huge savings.
yeah,
Wow.
that was great to see. We knew there'd be some, but I didn't expect that much. And then you'll see capital outlay, some of the projects or the equipment that they need for wastewater. We still do the 1/3 of the town where they come in and clean the sewers. We want to keep that up. We've seen quite a decrease in the number of sewer calls. So we know it's working, so we want to keep that up. Electric. Yeah, just slight increases. There was one mistake that's highlighted. Contractual services should have been 10,000 instead of 1,000. That was my fault. Should have been a 0 in there. And then capital outlay would be load management. With the system we have is outdated and unsupported, but it's still a good system. So 60,000 we can put in 350 new load management boxes. And we want to keep that going because there's considerable savings on the demand side if we can lower that when it's at its peak. Gas utility, there are the capital outlay project. There are some gas mains on between 10th and almost 13th Street that are in the road. So we're gonna, and they're old steel lines, so we're gonna bore in new plastic and get those in the right of way now, the spring before going into summer, so that we're not digging in the street if for the future. The natural gas purchased, that raised a little bit because the cost of natural gas is slightly higher. But you'll see I'd offset that with our sales. Solid waste. Expense, we're hoping to 2023 is when our landfill expires, to close it, so hopefully we're able to do that. This spring, we have to put in new wells, of course, to get a better sample, so we can prove to the Iowa DNR that we aren't having any leaching going on, and that they'll give us a final closure. So there's $14,000 every year that we're paying now to get these samples and for the engineering. So that'll go away once we finally get this closure done. So we're doing all we can to get to that point, and then it's just we have to maintain the cap and do a visual inspection every year once we get it closed, once we get proof that it's not leaching.
Telecom, no changes really there. We had talked about, let's see. We had talked about doing some pricing increases, but as we talked with Paul at our meeting earlier, we have budgeted some in, but it wasn't significant enough that it's going to make that much difference. We feel that if we take too much of a jump up, we're going to lose customers, and it's going to be a net wash. So we want to take that very carefully. But we can anticipate that we will be doing some kind of rate increase or bringing forth to you a rate increase, and you can decide what you would like to do with it from there. Telephone utility, we don't believe that we're going to make any changes there at this point. The cable is the one that we will be making some pricing changes, or making suggestions to you to make some pricing changes once we've been able to finish the upgrades that we're talking about. That brings us to the end. Any questions or anything that you want more detail on or that we missed? That was a quick 15-minute tour of the budget, so I apologize, but
I hear no questions. Thank you for your presentation with the budget. Thanks to all the department heads for their work on that. Moves us to agenda item number 6, Resolution 2022-03. This would be the resolution ordering the publication of and setting the public hearing for the max budget for February 9th, 2022. That keeps us within the timelines. Jacob gave us an overview last time. Any questions about that? That's a relatively new law from last year, and Rob commented on that.
So moved.
Been a motion by Travis. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by John. Roll call vote, please, for Resolution 2022-03.
Feldhacker.
Aye.
Clucky.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Harvey.
Yep.
Olson.
Aye.
On a 5-0 roll call vote, Resolution 2022-03 passes. We have no items for consent agenda tonight. Our next regular city council meeting will be February 9th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Motion by Patty. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Travis. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thanks so much for your time and your attention.